throne in the Great Hall of Korvac Prime, studying the tactical displays that showed the chaos spreading across the outer sectors. Red warning lights marked 17 facilities that had been attacked or destroyed in the past month. Supply lines that had operated smoothly for generations were breaking down. Most disturbing of all, human colonies throughout the galaxy were beginning to rebel. The Emperor was over 200 years old and had ruled the Corvani Empire for half his lifetime. He had crushed rebellions by dozens of species and expanded Corvani territory across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. But he had never faced anything like this before. One human was making the mighty empire look weak and helpless. Admiral Zefkun stood before the throne trying to explain how a single enemy had caused so much damage. The Admiral was one of the Empire's most successful commanders, but even he seemed shaken by recent events. His report spoke of an opponent who fought like no human they had ever encountered before. "This Jinwu Park is not just seeking revenge, Your Majesty," the Admiral said. "He is waging a systematic campaign to destroy our authority in the outer sectors. Every attack weakens our control and inspires more humans to resist our rule. If we do not stop him soon, we may face rebellion on hundreds of worlds." Emperor Kolvex had read the intelligence files on their enemy, a former Earth Navy SEAL who had retired to live peacefully with his daughter until Corvani forces killed her during a routine tax collection. The psychological profile suggested he would never stop until he destroyed everyone connected to her. Death. But the Emperor was more concerned about the symbol he had become. The image of So Young Park was appearing on underground networks throughout human space. Her story was being told in dozens of languages and spreading to species the Corvani had never heard of. The girl who died trying to help her neighbors had become a martyr for oppressed peoples everywhere. "What concerns me most," the Emperor said, "is how quickly this has spread beyond our borders. Intelligence reports suggest that human colonies under Zelith and Thrakari control are also beginning to rebel. This one man has started something that could destabilize the entire galactic order." Admiral Zefkun nodded grimly. He had been monitoring communications from other sectors, and the news was troubling. Human workers in Zelith mining operations were organizing strikes. Human soldiers in Thrakari armies were deserting their posts. The rebellion was spreading faster than anyone had imagined possible. Jinwu Park knew exactly what he was doing. When he broadcast that message from Kepler Station, the Admiral continued. He was not just announcing his war against us. He was calling all humans to remember what they could accomplish when they stopped accepting oppression. The Emperor considered his options. Military force alone would not solve this problem. Every ship they sent to hunt Jinwu was one less ship maintaining order in the colonies. Every soldier deployed to the manhunt was not available to suppress local rebellions. The human was forcing them to choose between finding him and controlling their territory. There was another factor that worried the Emperor even more. Other alien species were watching to see how the Corvani handled this crisis. If the Empire appeared weak, other subject peoples might decide that rebellion was possible. The carefully maintained balance of power that kept hundreds of species under control could collapse. "Double our forces in the outer sectors," the Emperor commanded. "I want every human world under constant surveillance. Any sign of rebellion should be crushed immediately before it can spread, and increase the bounty on Jinwu Park to 50 million credits. Someone will betray him for that much money." But even as he gave these orders, Emperor Kolvex knew they might not be enough. Jinwu Park had already demonstrated that he could penetrate any defense and strike any target. Traditional military tactics seemed useless against an enemy who could become invisible and appear anywhere without warning. The Emperor had one advantage that he hoped the human did not know about. Corvani intelligence had been monitoring Earth's military communications for decades. They had files on every decorated human soldier, including detailed psychological profiles and tactical assessments. If anyone could predict Jinwu Park's next move, it would be the analysts who had studied human warfare for years. Jinwu was indeed planning his next operation from his hidden base in the Helix Nebula. The asteroid base had once belonged to smugglers, but they had abandoned it years ago when patrol routes changed. Now it served as a perfect staging area for strikes throughout the sector. Automated systems kept it hidden from sensors while providing everything he needed to plan and execute missions. He monitored Corvani communications constantly and was pleased to see the chaos his actions were causing. Fleet deployments that should have been protecting trade routes were instead searching empty space for his base. Military units that should have been maintaining order were focused entirely on hunting one man. The Empire was so obsessed with stopping him that they were losing control of everything else. More importantly, Jinwu could see the effect his campaign was having on human morale throughout the galaxy. Reports from underground networks showed increasing resistance activity on dozens of worlds. Humans were remembering that their species had once fought wars of independence against alien empires and won. So Young's image was becoming a rallying cry for freedom that no amount of force could silence. Jinwu studied the tactical displays showing Corvani force deployments across the sector. They were spreading their ships thin, trying to cover every possible target while maintaining enough strength to respond to his attacks. It was exactly the kind of overextension that he had been trained to exploit during his military career. His next target would be the communication relay at Wolf Station. The facility coordinated fleet movements across 6 star systems and served as a backup command center for sector operations. Destroying it would blind the Corvani forces long enough for him to strike several smaller targets before they could respond. But Jinwu had a bigger plan than just military targets. He had been in contact with human resistance cells on 8 different worlds. They were small groups with limited resources, but they shared one important advantage. They knew their home territories better than any occupation force ever could. With the right support, they could cause far more damage than any single operative. The weapons shipment would arrive at Wolf Station in 3 days, disguised as medical supplies for the human workers. Jinwu had arranged for the cargo to be diverted to resistance cells on 4 different worlds, plasma rifles, energy grenades, and communication equipment that would allow the scattered groups to coordinate their attacks. Jinwu activated his secure communication system and sent coded messages to resistance leaders across the sector. The messages were simple. So Young Park died for trying to help her neighbors. On the anniversary of her death, we remember her sacrifice by striking back at those who killed her. Show the galaxy that humans will not quietly accept oppression anymore. Admiral Zefkun received reports of the coordinated attacks within hours of their execution. 12 Corvani facilities hit simultaneously across 4 star systems. Government buildings, communication towers, and military supply depots destroyed by human resistance fighters who disappeared into the civilian population before security forces could respond. The attacks were clearly coordinated and showed tactical knowledge that local resistance groups should not have possessed. Someone was training and equipping them with advanced military hardware. The Admiral realized that Jinwu Park was no longer operating alone. He had built a network of human rebels throughout the sector. Emergency reports flooded in from Colony, worlds where humans made up significant portions of the workforce. Mining operations shut down by strikes, transportation systems sabotaged by maintenance workers, communication networks disrupted by technicians who had access to critical systems. The rebellion was spreading faster than the Corvani could contain it. Emperor Kolvex received the reports in his private chambers and felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. Not fear of Jinwu Park individually, but fear of what he represented: the end of Corvani dominance over human colonies, the beginning of a galaxy-wide uprising that could destroy everything the Empire had built. The Emperor made a decision that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. He authorized the use of orbital bombardment against any human colony. That showed signs of rebellion. Entire cities could be destroyed from space if necessary to maintain control. It was a desperate measure, but desperate times called for extreme solutions. But even as he gave the orders, Emperor Kolvex knew they might be too late. Jinwu Park had already accomplished something more dangerous than destroying a few military bases. He had reminded humans throughout the galaxy that they did not have to accept oppression quietly, that their species was capable of fighting back against any enemy, no matter how powerful. The image of So Young Park smiling at the camera with her pet bird had become the symbol of human resistance across known space. Her death had given birth to something that no amount of military force could kill. The idea that freedom was worth fighting for even when the odds seemed impossible. Jin Woo looked at his daughter's picture one more time before beginning preparations for his next mission. Admiral Zef-kun stood in the command center of his flagship, studying the reports from the destroyed garrison. 38 Corvani soldiers dead in 7 days. Security systems completely bypassed. No witnesses except terrified survivors who spoke of an invisible human killer who moved like a ghost through their defenses. The admiral had commanded fleets for 15 years and fought in 3 major wars. He knew the difference between random terrorism and professional military operations. This was the work of someone with advanced training and extensive knowledge of Corvani tactics. Someone very dangerous. Zef-kun pulled up the files on the human farming colony where this had started. A routine tax collection that went wrong when a young human female tried to interfere. Commander Vextar had killed her as an example to keep. The others in line. Standard procedure for dealing with unruly colonists. But now that standard procedure had unleashed something that was tearing apart Corvani operations across the sector. The admiral studied what little information they had about the girl's father. Jinwoo Park farmer and former Earth military. The military records were sealed, but Zef-kun had contacts in intelligence who could access classified files. What he learned made his blood cold. Jinwoo Park had been one of Earth's most decorated Navy SEAL operators. 20 years of combat operations across alien worlds. Specialist in infiltration assassination and guerrilla warfare. He had disappeared 3 years ago and was presumed dead. Now Zef-kun knew where he had been hiding. The admiral realized they were not dealing with an angry farmer. They were facing one of the most dangerous humans ever trained for war. Someone who knew exactly how to hurt the Corvani Empire and had nothing left to lose. Jinwoo was already moving toward his next target. The supply depot at Kepler Station. Controlled fuel and ammunition for 6-star systems. If he could disrupt their logistics, entire fleets would be stranded without resources. More importantly, the station commander, Captain Vorix, had been Commander Vextar's closest friend and had recommended him for promotion after killing human civilians. Getting to Kepler Station required careful planning. The facility was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid and heavily defended. But Jinwoo had studied their supply routes and found a weakness. Cargo freighters came and went, constantly carrying goods to colonies throughout the sector. Security focused on preventing large-scale attacks, not individual infiltrators. Jinwoo bought passage on a freight hauler using forged credentials that identified him as a maintenance worker. The ship's captain was a Rillan trader who cared more about his payment than his passengers' backgrounds. During the 3-day journey, Jinwoo studied the crew and cargo, learning everything he could about operations at Kepler Station. The station was massive, with thousands of workers from dozens of different species. Humans, aliens, and artificial intelligences worked together in the cargo bays and processing centers. The Corvani controlled everything, but they needed other species to keep the operation running smoothly. Jinwoo blended in with the maintenance crews, who moved freely throughout the station. His forged work orders gave him access to critical systems that the Corvani assumed were secure. Over the course of a week, he mapped every corridor, learned every routine, and identified every weakness in their security. The Corvani had grown comfortable in their dominance. Their security was designed to prevent rebellion by large groups, not infiltration by a single highly trained operative. They never imagined that one human with the right skills could bring down their entire operation. Jinwoo began with small acts of sabotage that looked like accidents or equipment failures. A fuel processing plant suffered a containment breach during routine maintenance. Computer networks developed critical errors that spread through connected systems. Supply shipments were contaminated or mislabeled, causing delays and confusion. Captain. Orcs grew increasingly frustrated as his perfect efficiency record crumbled. Inspectors arrived from Sector Command to investigate the problems, but found no evidence of deliberate sabotage. Everything appeared to be the result of aging equipment and worker incompetence. Jinwoo escalated his campaign as he learned more about the station's operations. He discovered that Orcs had been present at several incidents where human workers were killed or injured for minor infractions. The captain enjoyed using his authority to terrorize weaker species and had built his career on brutality disguised as discipline. The fuel depot explosion happened during the night shift when fewer workers were present. Jinwoo had calculated the blast precisely to destroy the facility without harming innocent people. The explosion lit up space for thousands of kilometers and sent shock waves through the asteroid that cracked the station's hull in 17 places. Emergency. Systems activated throughout Kepler Station as atmosphere leaked into space, and backup power struggled to maintain life support. In the chaos that followed, Jinwoo accessed the main communication array and broadcast a message on all frequencies. The message was simple and broadcast in every language used in the sector. So-Young Park, age 16. Killed for trying to help. Her neighbors understand tax laws. Remember her name. Remember that humans are not animals to be slaughtered for your entertainment. The message repeated for 6 hours before technicians could shut down the hijacked communication system. By then, it had been heard on hundreds of worlds and recorded by news services throughout the galaxy. The image of a smiling human girl appeared on screens across known space, along with her father's declaration of war against those who had killed her. Captain Orcs received a personal message on his private terminal. The screen showed a picture of So-Young with her pet bird, followed by detailed information about every human civilian the captain had killed during his career. At the bottom was a single line of text. She was trying to help, and you laughed when she died. Now you understand what humans do to protect their children. Jinwoo found the captain in his private quarters 3 levels below the command center. Orcs was waiting with a plasma rifle and 2 bodyguards, but it made no difference. A Navy SEAL who had spent 20 years killing aliens in close combat was more than they could handle. When security forces found the captain's body 6 hours later, they also found a datapad containing evidence of his crimes against human civilians. The files had been copied from his personal computer and would be broadcast across the sector within hours. Even in death, Orcs would serve as an example of what happened to those who killed innocents. The destruction of Kepler Station made headlines across the galaxy. A critical Corvani military facility destroyed by a single human operative, entire fleets stranded without fuel or ammunition, supply lines that had operated smoothly for decades thrown into chaos. More importantly, the story of So-Young Park began, spreading among human colonies throughout known space. The image of a teenage girl who died trying to help her neighbors became a symbol of human courage and sacrifice. Her father's war against the Corvani Empire inspired other humans to stand up against oppression. Admiral Zefkun read the reports with growing alarm. This was no longer about one angry human seeking revenge. Jinwoo Park had become something much more dangerous. He was a symbol that other humans could rally behind, a proof that their species was not weak or helpless against alien dominance. The Admiral knew that killing Jinwoo would only make him a martyr, but letting him continue his campaign would destroy Corvani authority throughout the sector. Either choice led to disaster for the Empire. Zefkun made his decision. If one human could cause this much damage, imagine what an organized human resistance could accomplish. The threat had to be eliminated before it could spread further. He began mobilizing every ship and soldier under his command for the largest manhunt in Corvani history. Jin Woo monitored their communications from his hidden base in the asteroid fields. The Empire was treating him like an invading army instead of a single person. Thousands of soldiers were being deployed to hunt for one grieving father. It was exactly what he wanted. Every ship searching for him was not protecting other targets. Every soldier hunting him was not maintaining order in the colonies. The Corvani were so focused on stopping him that they were leaving themselves vulnerable everywhere else. Jin Woo looked at the picture of So Young he kept on his workstation. Her smiling face reminded him why he was doing this. Not just for revenge, but to make sure no other human parent would lose their child to alien cruelty. Her death was giving birth to something the galaxy had never seen before. A human rebellion that would shake the foundations of every empire among the stars. Jin Woo knelt beside the fresh grave under So Young's favorite apple tree. The wooden marker he had carved with his own hands read her name in Korean characters. Below that, he had written the words she always said to him, "Good morning, Papa, I love you." 3 days had passed since the Corvani patrol ships came to their village. 3 days since Commander Vextar had demanded impossible taxes from farmers who barely had enough food for winter. 3 days since his beautiful daughter had stepped forward to help translate and explain their situation. Jin Woo closed his eyes and saw it happen again. So Young, speaking carefully in Corvani language, trying to make the alien commander understand. Her voice was calm and respectful even though her hands were shaking. She was scared, but she wanted to help her neighbors. Commander Vextar had 4 arms like all Corvani, and each one ended in sharp claws. His skin was gray and covered in the ritual scars that showed his military rank. When So Young tried to explain why the farmers could not pay more taxes, the commander became angry. He said humans were weak and stupid and had no right to speak to their betters. So Young kept trying to help. She used the formal speech patterns she had learned in school. She bowed the way Corvani culture required. She did everything right, but it did not matter. Vextar raised his plasma weapon and fired once. So Young fell to the ground and never moved again. The other Corvani soldiers laughed. They thought it was funny that a human child had tried to speak their language. They made jokes about weak humans, while Jin Woo held his daughter's body. Then they flew away in their ships, like nothing had happened. Jin Woo had not eaten or slept since that moment. The other villagers brought food and left it on his doorstep, but he could not taste anything. Old man Taeho sat with him sometimes and cried for the girl who used to help in his store. The children left flowers on So Young's grave because she had been their teacher and friend. On the 4th morning, Jin Woo stood up from beside the grave. Something had changed inside him during those 3 days of grief. The peaceful farmer who grew vegetables and fixed broken machines was gone. In his place stood someone much more dangerous. Jin Woo walked back to his house and went down to the basement. In the corner behind bags of stored grain was a metal container he had not opened in 3 years. His hands remembered the lock combination even though he had tried to forget it. Inside the container were things from his old life. Body armor made from materials that could stop plasma bolts. Weapons designed to kill aliens in 17 different ways. Communication devices that could hack into any system in the galaxy. Medical supplies for treating wounds in combat. Everything a Navy SEAL needed to wage war across the stars. At the bottom of the container was a small device no bigger than his thumb. When activated, it would send a signal to Earth Military Command that Jin Woo Park was officially dead. His records would be erased. His identity would disappear. The man who had served for 20 years would cease to exist. Jin Woo activated the device and felt his old life end completely. Now there was only the mission. Find every Corvani who had been in that village. Make them pay for what they did to So Young. Make them understand that humans were not weak prey animals to be killed for entertainment. The Corvani had a garrison on the next planet in the system. Jin Woo knew this because he had studied all the military installations when he first moved. to New Busan. Old habits from his soldier days. Always know where your enemies are and how to reach them. Getting to the garrison planet would require a ship. Jin-Woo walked to the spaceport in the next valley where cargo haulers stopped to buy food from the farming communities. He watched the crews and listened to their conversations. Most were honest traders, but some were smugglers who asked no questions if you paid them enough. A ship captain named Hai Jin agreed to give Jin-Woo passage in exchange for credits and no questions about what was in his travel bag. The journey took 2 days, and Jin-Woo spent the time planning his approach to the garrison. He studied the layout from stolen blueprints and memorized guard rotations from intercepted communications. The Corvani base was built into a mountain on the northern continent. 50 soldiers lived there, along with support staff and administrative personnel. Their job was to collect taxes from 12 human farming worlds and keep the local population under control. They had energy shields and automated defenses, but these were designed to stop large attacks, not single infiltrators. Jin-Woo approached the base at night wearing his old stealth gear. The armor made him nearly invisible to sensors and muffled any sound he made. Guard towers that should have seen him coming detected nothing. Motion sensors that should have triggered alarms remained silent. Inside the base, Jin-Woo moved through corridors he had memorized from the stolen plans. He avoided the main barracks where most soldiers were sleeping and headed for the communications center. There he accessed the computer systems and downloaded everything about recent operations in his home system. He found what he was looking for in Commander Vextar's personal files. The commander was here temporarily while his regular ship was being repaired. His normal assignment was on Korvac Prime, the sector capital. He had been involved in dozens of incidents where human civilians were killed or injured during tax collection operations. Jin-Woo also found the names and faces of every Corvani soldier who had been present when So Young died. Their service records showed where they were stationed and what their duties were. He memorized every detail and downloaded their files to his portable drive. Before leaving the communications center, Jin-Woo planted listening devices and hacking programs that would give him access to their networks. Then he began hunting the soldiers who had laughed when his daughter fell. The first one was a young trooper named Kex Rin, who was on guard duty at the main gate. Jin-Woo approached from the blind spot he had identified in the tower's sensor coverage. One moment the guard was standing alert at his post. The next moment he was gone. Kex Rin's body was found the next morning hanging from the communications tower with a note pinned to his chest. The note had one word written in Korean characters: So Young. The base commander ordered increased security, but it was already too late. Over the next week, 6 more soldiers disappeared. Each one had been present when So Young was killed. Each one was found in an impossible location that showed someone with advanced military training was hunting them. The base went into full alert, but their enemy was already inside their defenses. Commander Vextar tried to leave the planet, but his transport ship suffered a critical engine failure during takeoff. As the ship burned in the atmosphere, he received one final message on his personal communicator. It was a picture of So Young smiling at the camera with her pet bird on her shoulder. Below the picture were words in Corvani language that So Young had taught herself. They said you killed an innocent child, and now you pay the price. The Corvani garrison sent emergency signals to Sector Command requesting immediate reinforcements. They reported that an unknown enemy was systematically eliminating their personnel, using advanced human military tactics. The few survivors described an invisible killer who could penetrate any defense and strike without warning. By the time Jin-Woo left the planet, only 12 Corvani soldiers remained alive out of the original 50. He had let them live so they could spread the word about what happened when you hurt innocent humans. The message was simple. We are not as weak as you think. We remember our dead, and we will find you no matter where you hide. Jin-Woo looked back at the burning garrison one last time before his transport ship jumped to hyperspace. So Young would not have approved of what he had done. She believed in talking and understanding and finding peaceful solutions. But she was gone now, and the galaxy needed to learn that killing human children had consequences. The hunt was just beginning. Jinwoo Park woke up before the sun every morning on the planet New Busan. He had been doing this for 3 years now, and his body knew the routine. The air smelled like fresh earth and growing plants. This was so different from the metal corridors of warships where he used to sleep. He walked to the kitchen and made coffee in the old machine that always made funny noises. Through the window, he could see the valley where their small farm sat among dozens of others. The human settlers had built their homes to look like the old country back on Earth. Red tile roofs and wooden walls that reminded them of home. So Young was already awake in her room. Jinwoo could hear her talking to her pet bird that she had, found with a broken wing last year. She always woke up happy and talking to someone or something. Her mother had been the same way before the sickness took her 5 years ago. Now it was just Jinwoo and his 16-year-old daughter in their quiet life. Jinwoo looked at his hands while he drank his coffee. The scars were still there from his old life. Burns from plasma weapons, cuts from alien blades, a missing finger, from a bomb that went off too close. For 20 years he had been Earth's most dangerous soldier. Navy SEAL operations across 3 different star systems. He had killed more aliens than most people had ever seen. But that man was gone now. The man who could break into enemy ships and eliminate entire squads without making a sound. The man who knew 17 different ways to kill with his bare hands. That man had died the day So Young smiled at him and asked if they could live somewhere peaceful and grow vegetables. So Young came into the kitchen wearing her school clothes and her backpack already on. She was tall like her father, but had her mother's gentle face. Her black hair was always a little messy, no matter how much she brushed it. She grabbed a piece of bread and kissed Jinwoo on the cheek. "Good morning, Papa," she said in Korean. The still spoke their old language at home, even though everyone else used Galactic Standard. It made Jinwoo feel connected to something real. "Good morning, little star," he replied, using the nickname he had called her since she was small. "You have your translation homework today, right?" So Young nodded and switched to Galactic Standard. "Yes, and I need to practice my Corvani language too. Mr. Tejo said some of the farmers are having trouble with the tax collectors again. Maybe I can help translate if they come to our village." Jinwoo felt something cold in his stomach when she said this. The Corvani Empire controlled this part of space. They collected taxes from all the human colonies and kept the peace. Most of the time they left people alone if you paid what you owed and did not cause trouble. But Jinwoo had fought Corvani soldiers in the border wars. He knew they could be cruel when they wanted to make a point. "Just remember what I taught you," he said. "If there is ever any trouble, you run away first. Do not try to be brave. Do not try to help. Just run and find me." So Young rolled her eyes the way teenagers do when their parents worry too much. "Papa, I know, but the Corvani are not so bad. They just want their taxes. If people can understand each other, there is no need for fighting." Jinwoo watched his daughter walk down the dirt road toward the school. She stopped to pet every animal she saw and waved at all the neighbors. Everyone in the village loved So Young. She helped the old people with their computers. She taught the young kids how to read. She even learned alien languages so she could help when officials came to visit. This was exactly the kind of person Jinwoo had been fighting to protect during his military years. Good people who wanted to live quiet lives and raise their families. He had killed thousands of enemies, so people like So Young could grow up safe and happy. Jinwoo spent the morning working in their vegetable garden. The tomatoes were growing well this season, and the corn was almost ready to harvest. His hands that once held assault rifles now planted seeds and pulled weeds. His body that once ran through alien jungles now bent over rows of crops under a peaceful sun. The other farmers waved to him as they worked their own fields. They knew Jinwoo had been in the military, but they did not know the details. He was just Park from the farm with the red roof, who grew the best vegetables and fixed everyone's broken equipment. His old life was like a dream that felt less real every day. At lunchtime, Jinwoo walked to the village center to buy supplies. The market was busy with people buying food and talking about their crops. Old man Taeho, who ran the general store, was telling a group of farmers about the tax problems. "The Corvani want 30% more this year," Taeho said. "But we had those bad storms last month. Half the crops were damaged. We cannot pay what we do not have." Jinwoo listened, but did not join the conversation. In his old life, he would have started making plans to solve this problem with violence, find the Corvani officials, learn their routines, strike fast and hard. But that was not who he was anymore. He was just a farmer who wanted to stay out of trouble. That afternoon, So Young came home from school excited about something. She had learned a new Corvani phrase and wanted to practice it. Jinwoo helped her with the pronunciation, even though the alien words felt strange in his mouth. He had learned Corvani battle commands during the war, but his daughter was learning how to say please and thank you. And how are you today? They ate dinner together as the sun went down over the valley. So Young told him about her classes and her friends and the boy named Dong Min, who she maybe liked a little bit. Jinwoo listened and tried not to think about how fast she was growing up. Soon she would be an adult and would not need her old father anymore. Before bed, So Young showed Jinwoo her translation homework. She had written a letter in Corvani explaining why the human farmers were having trouble with their taxes. The letter was polite and respectful and asked for understanding. It was exactly the kind of thing So Young would write. She always believed that people could work out their problems if they just talked to each other. "I hope I never have to use this," she said. "But if the tax collectors come, maybe this will help them understand our situation." Jinwoo kissed his daughter goodnight and watched her go to her room. She was everything good about humanity. Kind and smart and hopeful about the future. She was the reason he had left his old life behind. She was worth more than all the medals and commissions and battle honors he had earned. Outside his window, the valley was quiet under the stars. Jinwoo could see lights in the windows of other houses where families were settling down for the night. This was the life he had chosen. This was the life he wanted to protect. Tomorrow would be another peaceful day of farming and watching his daughter grow into a remarkable young woman. He had no way of knowing that tomorrow would change everything forever. Admiral Zef Kun stood on the bridge of his flagship studying the holographic display that showed Jinwoo Park's likely locations. 6 months of hunting the most dangerous human in the galaxy had taught the Admiral to think like his prey. Jinwoo would not attack randomly. Every strike served a larger purpose in his war against the Empire. The next logical target was the command center on Zarion 7, where the Corvani had established their new sector headquarters. The facility coordinated military operations across 12 star systems and housed the archives containing records of every human killed during tax collection operations. For someone seeking justice for his daughter, it would be an irresistible target. But Admiral Zef Kun had learned something important about humans during his months of studying Jinwoo Park. They formed emotional bonds that went beyond rational self-interest. A human father would do anything to protect his child and would never forgive those who harmed her. This made them predictable in certain ways, but also incredibly dangerous when threatened. The Admiral had set his trap carefully. Intelligence. Reports suggested Jinwoo was planning an attack on the Zarion 7 command center within the next week. Zef Kun had positioned his best troops at the facility and waited for the human to make his move. But when Jinwoo struck, it was not where the Admiral expected. Jinwoo had infiltrated the Admiral's flagship while it orbited Zarion 7. Using a captured Corvani fighter and forged identification codes, he had docked with the massive warship during a routine supply transfer. By the time security realized what had happened, he was already inside their defenses, moving through corridors he had memorized from stolen blueprints. The Admiral was not on the bridge when Jinwoo reached it. Instead, he found a holographic message, waiting for him. Admiral Zef Kun appeared as a shimmering blue image with his forearms crossed in a gesture of respect that surprised the human warrior. Jinwoo Park, the hologram said. I have studied your tactics for 6 months and learned to respect your skills as a soldier. You fight with honor even in your quest for vengeance. That is why I am offering you something no Corvani commander has ever offered a human. The chance to face me in single combat and end this war between us. The message continued with coordinates for a meeting place on the surface of New Busan, Jinwoo's home world where his daughter was buried. The admiral would come alone and unarmed to discuss terms that might prevent further bloodshed. But there was a condition that made Jinwoo's blood turn cold. While you have been hunting my officers across the sector, my forces have returned to your farming colony. The humans who were your neighbors and friends are now my prisoners. If you do not surrender yourself within 72 hours, they will share the same fate as your daughter. Jinwoo watched the recording 3 times, trying to find some sign that it was a deception. But he knew Admiral Zef Kun's reputation from his military files. The Corvani commander was ruthless, but he was also honorable by the standards of his species. If he said the villagers were prisoners, then it was probably true. Jinwoo accessed the communication array and sent a coded message to his resistance contacts throughout the sector. The message was simple, but contained everything they needed to know. Continue the fight. Do not let my daughter's death be meaningless. Remember that humans are stronger than our enemies believe. He also sent personal messages to resistance leaders on 8 different worlds, detailed tactical plans for operations that could be executed without his direct support. Weapons caches he had established on 4 different planets, communication codes that would allow the scattered groups to coordinate their activities. Everything. They would need to continue the rebellion after he was gone. Jinwoo knew this was probably a trap. Admiral Zef Kun was too intelligent to face him in honest single combat when he could simply eliminate him from orbit. But the Admiral had made one crucial mistake. He had threatened innocent humans who had been So Young's friends and neighbors. That was something Jinwoo could not allow, even if it meant walking into certain death. Before leaving the flagship, Jinwoo planted charges throughout the ship's critical systems. Not enough to kill the crew, but sufficient to disable the vessel for several weeks. As his stolen fighter departed, the Corvani warship began suffering cascade failures in its engines and life support systems. The Admiral would survive, but his flagship would need extensive repairs. The journey back to New Busan took 18 hours, during which Jinwoo prepared for what might be his final mission. He checked his weapons and equipment, but also spent time looking at pictures of So Young. Her smiling face reminded him why he had started this war, and why it was worth continuing even if he did not survive. Jinwoo also monitored news broadcasts from human colonies throughout the galaxy. The rebellion that had started with his daughters. Death was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. Humans on 63 different worlds were now actively resisting alien occupation. The image of So Young Park had become a symbol of hope for oppressed peoples everywhere. When Jinwoo reached New Busan, he found Corvani troops occupying his village, but they had kept their word about not harming the civilians. Old Man Taeho and the other farmers were being held in the community center, but they appeared uninjured. Jinwoo could see fear in their faces, but also something else. Pride that their neighbor's daughter had inspired resistance across the galaxy. Admiral Zef Kun was waiting at So Young's grave, as he had promised. The Corvani commander stood beneath the apple tree where Jinwoo had buried his daughter 6 months earlier. He was alone and appeared to be unarmed, but Jinwoo knew better than to trust appearances. The Admiral had not survived 15 years of warfare by being careless. "You came," the Admiral said in accented Galactic standard. "I was not certain you would risk your life for people who are not your blood relatives. Humans are more loyal to their communities than our intelligence files suggested." Jinwoo approached carefully, keeping his hands visible but ready to draw weapons if necessary. So Young believed that people could solve their problems by talking to each other, he said. She died trying to help her neighbors understand your tax laws. If there is any part of you that honors courage, you should understand why I cannot let you hurt them. Admiral Zef-kun nodded slowly. I have studied your daughter's final moments. She showed bravery in speaking for her people even though she was afraid. Commander Vextar was wrong to kill her, but what you have done in response has cost thousands of lives and threatens the stability of this entire sector. Jinwoo felt anger rise in his chest but forced himself to remain calm. So Young tried to build bridges between species. You responded by murdering her for trying to help. Everything that has happened since then is the result of that choice. You taught humans that talking to Corvani leads to death. Now you complain that we prefer fighting. The Admiral studied Jinwoo with the calculating gaze of a predator evaluating dangerous prey. You have become more than just a grieving father seeking revenge. Your resistance network has inspired humans throughout the galaxy to rebel against their rulers. My Emperor wants you eliminated before this spreads further. Jinwoo smiled grimly. It is already too late for that. So Young's story is being told on hundreds of worlds. Humans are remembering that we do not have to accept oppression quietly. You can kill me, but you cannot kill the idea that freedom is worth fighting for. Admiral Zef-kun drew a concealed plasma weapon from beneath his ceremonial robes. I hoped we could reach an understanding, but I see that is impossible. You have chosen to be a symbol of human defiance. Therefore, you must die so that symbol cannot inspire others. But as the Admiral raised his weapon, Jinwoo heard the sound of aircraft approaching from multiple directions. Human resistance fighters from 3 different star systems had coordinated their arrival at New Busan. They had come to ensure that So Young's father would not face his enemies alone. Admiral Zef-kun looked up at the sky where dozens of ships were dropping out of hyperspace. Human vessels of every size and configuration piloted by rebels who had answered Jinwoo's call for support. The Admiral realized his trap had become something else entirely. The final battle that would determine whether humans would remain subjects or become free. Jinwoo drew his own weapon as energy bolts began falling from the sky toward Corvani positions throughout the valley. This is not just about me anymore, Admiral. This is about every human child who will grow up free because their parents decided to fight rather than submit. The Battle of New Busan was about to begin, and its outcome would reshape the balance of power across the known galaxy. The Battle of New Busan lasted 3 days. Jinwoo arrived to find the village defended by farmers armed with hunting rifles and mining equipment, led by Old Man Tai-ho, who had been So Young's favorite storyteller. The Corvani had underestimated human determination when their families were threatened. Admiral Zef-kun brought his entire fleet to bear against the tiny farming community, but Jinwoo had prepared the battlefield well. Hidden weapon caches, booby traps, and guerrilla tactics turned the peaceful valley into a nightmare for the invading forces. Every meter cost the Corvani dozens of casualties. As the battle raged, news arrived that changed everything. The rebellion had spread beyond the sector. Human colonies across the galaxy were rising against their alien oppressors, inspired by the story of Jinwoo Park and his daughter So Young. The girl's name had become a rallying cry for human independence. In the HFY final confrontation, Jinwoo faced Admiral Zef-kun in single combat among the ruins of his home. The Corvani leader was skilled and experienced, but he fought for duty and honor. Jinwoo fought for love and memory. When it was over, the Admiral lay dying in the shadow of So Young's grave. With his final breath, Admiral Zef-kun admitted what Jinwoo had already realized. The war was bigger than both of them now. The Corvani Empire would never again see humans as weak or helpless. Whether that led to peace or greater conflict would depend on leaders wiser than warriors. Jinwoo Park survived the battle, but the man who had been a farmer died with his daughter. In his place stood a symbol of human resistance, a reminder that even the mightiest empire could not crush the human spirit. So Young's grave became a pilgrimage site for humans seeking freedom across the galaxy. The quiet girl who had tried to help translate between species had become the catalyst for humanity's greatest awakening. Her father had kept his promise. Everyone would remember her name. And in remembering, they learned that humans were not just another species to be ruled. They were a force that, when pushed too far, would reshape the very foundations of galactic civilization. The Galactic Empire had killed a human girl. They discovered too late that they had awakened something far more dangerous than any army, a father's love transformed into an entire species' determination to be free.